Oh, there we go. Willie, thank you for joining us this evening. As I said, you've been away and jet lag and one thing and another, but you still promised Jimmy Elms and Alan Waldo that you'd come tonight along with Alan Gowling, so it's great of you to come.
Thank you.
Just talk to us about your journey into football, just before we get to the United bit, that young boy, that young lad who dreamed of being a footballer.
No, it wasn't like that. As a kid, I grew up in a little mining village in Socky. Only about 250 people, and everyone was in the mines. So my choice, and we left school at 15 in those days. It wasn't long ago, though, not that long ago. And the choice was to become a priest, Paddy. I nearly was one of your mob. Or go down the mines with my family. So, Clackmannan County, where the village was, is the smallest county in Scotland. And they have the Scottish Schools Cup. And Clackmannan, for the first time, we won our first 2 games. And the next game was in February, and I was due to leave school Christmas time, birthdays in October. And the headmaster, Mr. Campbell, came to the village for the first time. He lived in Alloa, and said, "Oh, Mr. Morgan, is it all right if William stays on?" He said, "No, he can't stay on. He's got to go to work. He's got to earn a living." So, and obviously, I was going down the pits, Paddy. I wasn't going to become a priest, so you were safe. And 2 days later, Canon Matthews came up, the priest, and said, "Mr. Morgan, is it all right if William stays on?" He said, "Yes, Father." So, but for him, I wouldn't have played football. I'd been down the mines. So I stayed on, and then obviously the rest, play for Scotland, and then they had a choice of most of the clubs in the country, and ended up at Burnley by mistake.
Tell us how that happened then.
Oh my God! You said we've only got 10 minutes. Right, so the scouts started coming to the house, and you have to appreciate it's a little mining. My dad had never been out the village. We didn't have a television, we didn't have a phone, we didn't have you had very, very little. And the first scout knocked on the door, and it was from Burnley, and he said, "Oh, we'd like to take him down to Burnley, and if he likes it, he'll sign for us." And of course, he said, "Where's Burnley?"
Yeah,
he said, "It's in England." "Really? Can't go to England." So, next day, Celtic scout came, the Rangers scout, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, Newcastle, Blackpool. They all came in and they all said, "He can come for 2 weeks, and hopefully if he likes it, we'll sign him." So what do you do when he's there? Well, we pay him £8 a week. Now you have to appreciate. For the older digger, you'll probably remember these days. My dad worked in the pit, a 60-hour week in the pit face, and he earned £3.10 shillings. Anyone remember shillings? £3.50p he earned for a week's work, 60-hour week. I said, £8? Wow. What are you giving him £8 for? And he couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, that's what we pay the apprentices." For 2 weeks? "Oh no, he gets £8 each week, so we get £16. Wow. So we sat down, counted up the figures, and said, "Okay, well, we'll go to Burnley, United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Blackpool, Newcastle, and go home and sign for Celtic," because they were Celtic fans.
Yeah.
And that was the plan. And when I went to Burnley, I chipped a bone in my toe while we were playing, and I had to be there for about 6 weeks. And they were really nice. Don't forget, I'd never been out of the village either. And they were just really nice. And Harry Potts was the manager. And he said, "You'll sign for us, won't you?" I said, "I don't know, you have to ask my dad." So, anyway, they went and brought my dad down. And I said, Dad, I'm going to sign for them. You're not signing for, you're coming home.
Right.
But they're really nice. He said, they'll kill you when you're sleeping. They're English, they'll kill you. I said, no. I said, they're really nice people.
Yeah.
He couldn't, and he was still at war with England, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't actually my dad, by the way. He was my granddad. That's a different story. But
Yeah.
I said, no, they're really nice. And Harry Potts was lovely. And so I signed.
Great.
That's how I ended up going to Burnley.
What a beautiful story, ladies and gentlemen. It just brings it all back to real life. So, Willie, tell us about when Manchester United come knocking.
Well, we played you not long previous. We beat you 6-1 or something at Burnley. Sorry. And you beat us the following day, 5-0 or something.
Yeah.
And I fell out, I fallen out with Bob Lord. He was an animal. He made Tommy Docherty look like Mother Teresa. I'd fallen out with him, and I was due to sign a new contract. And I was, back then, I can't remember what I'd asked for, but I'd made it in the first team. I was, at the time, doing very well. And so I wrote down what I wanted and slipped it under Harry Potts' door in an envelope. Anyway, Bob Lord, he didn't take very kindly. I can't repeat here because I've got Father Paddy here, what he called me. And I can't repeat what I called him back. So needless to say, it was finished. So they wouldn't let me train. This was pre-season, just starting pre-season. They wouldn't let me train. So I just played golf. And then Harry Potts called me in. He said, oh, we've had Chelsea on, I've had Celtic on, we've had so and so on. Will you go and... I said, yeah, I'll go and speak to them. And then I got a visit. I lived in Diggs. I actually slept with another lad. We were 20-odd-year-old, but we were in Diggs. And knock on the door. Don Revie was at the door. Wow. And he said, I want you. He said, Burnley are asking 100,000 for you. I said, we're off for 70, but there's 15 for you. Right. So one of the things that people don't know, back then, if you asked for a transfer, you got nothing. If you didn't ask for a transfer, you got 10% of the transfer fee. So, and Bob Lord wouldn't, he just said, I'll make you rot. You'll never kick another ball. Put it in writing that you want a transfer. I said, no. And so Don Revie said, whoever comes in, just say no. Yeah. Right? I said, well, I've had so-and-so. He said, no, just say no. And this went on the whole summer. And I just kept saying no. And he kept popping back over. Because I didn't have a phone in the Digs either. And I said, don't worry. They'll have to sell. And they hated each other. Bob Lord and Manny Cousins, who was the chairman at Lee, hated each other. He said, they'll have to sell you to us. And I said, okay, I'll wait. So it went on and on and on. And I was playing golf at Bacup. Anyone know where Bacup is?
Yes.
Dodge City, yeah. Well, I lived there. And I was playing golf up at Bacup. And it was a Friday night. And I was on my own. And it was just going dark. I was playing the 9th hole. It was on the 9-hole course. It's a par 3. I had a wedge. I hit a wedge. And I'm walking down. I see this guy walking up. It's on the top of a hill, by the way. Yeah. So he's walking up the hill. He's got a trilby on, a trench coat. And I thought, Bob Lord sent somebody to get me. I did. You know, you're laughing, but it's pretty so true. So I'm walking down. And I've got a carrying bag. Yeah. I've got my wedge in my hand. I said, hey, don't come any further, babe. I'll put this wedge through your head. Yeah. And he said, oh, no. Yeah. He said, Mr. Busby sent me. And I said, really? He said, yeah, Mr. Busby sent me. Can I have a word with you? Yeah. He said, is there any chance you could come down to Old Trafford tonight? This is about 6 o'clock now.
Right.
I speak to Mr. Busby. So I said, yeah. So I followed him down and got off. Obviously, brought me off. I'd never been in the car before to Manchester. And as I got out of the car, Nick, your dad met me, Jimmy Murphy.
Right.
And Jimmy says, come here, son. He gave me a hug. He was all right. He said, come with me. And he took me inside the director's box, Martin, and said that, and the pitch was lit up. They were playing Chelsea on the Saturday, by the way.
Right.
I won't tell you the score. They got beat 4-0. And he said, what do you see? And I said, oh, I can see the tricula. Get in there and sign. I said, okay. And then he took me in to see Matt.
Right.
And he just said, I've been after you for a long time. He said, would you like to come here? And I said, and I'm thinking, what am I going to tell Don Revie?
Yeah.
You know. I said, yeah. He just won the European Cup, by the way, which was a bit of a... And he just said, well, anything you want to ask me? And I said, no, it's all right. And he said, well, can you come back tomorrow? I'll get the other contracts prepared and you sign them tomorrow. And I said, okay, right. So I went back home.
Right.
And my then wife, sadly, we passed away. Said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to sign for them. She said, well, what about Don Revie? I said, I don't know what to say to him. She said, well, what are you going to pay you? I said, I didn't like to ask him. Yeah, I know you're laughing, but I'll tell you what, it's true. So I said, but I'll find out tomorrow, because when I sign the contracts, I'll look. She said, I can't believe it, you're doing that. I said, yeah, it'll be all right. So I went back on the Saturday morning, and Matt met me about 11 o'clock. I see you were playing Chelsea, obviously. And Les Olive was the secretary, so he got on the phone, yeah, Mr. Olive, would you come in? And in those days, you signed 5 copies of the contract. So he brings the contracts in, and he said, sign there. There's no figures.
All right.
And he signed there. So I signed all the 5 contracts, and I still didn't know what they were going to pay me. I know.
I bet you wish you had them, Jason, don't you?
Oh, no. Hey, unbelievable. And then he said, would you like to stay at the match? I said, I'm playing golf, Gaffer. I'm playing in a tournament at Bay Cup. They said, okay, well, perhaps it's better because the papers will be around you and that. So I signed for Man United for a record fee. It turned out to be 117,000, if it's a record at the time. And I didn't know what they were going to pay me. There you go. A great businessman, isn't I?
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Willie Morgan. Just on a final note, Willie, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of love with the Manchester United fans for you. You can feel it tonight. What was your fondest memory playing for this great club?
You know, I was asked earlier on, just walking out on the Wednesday night, we were playing Tottenham, just walking out the tunnel, it was very special.
Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, the legend that is Willie Morgan, please be upstanding. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to ask Jason and Martin just to come up to make a presentation, please, to Willie, if you don't mind, gentlemen, on behalf of the Association of Former Players. Martin, you were talking before about Willie and about your dad and everything else. Just give us an overview of this man.
Well, I remember, we just won the European Cup, and we'd bought a player from Burnley a few years earlier called John Connelly, who I think Willie took over from. He was magnificent for us for 3 or 4 years, and he fell out with Matt after the World Cup. And Matt was looking at the options, because we had Johnny Aston on one wing and George Best on the other, and I think he felt that he wanted to bring... Willie was tearing up records at the time for Burnley, playing very well. We knew Matt had his eye on him, and he wanted to bring Matt in, and he eventually ended up selling Johnny Aston to Luton. Willie came in. The problem was Willie played on the right and George Best played on the right, but actually George ended up on the left to accommodate Willie on the right. So that shows you how much...
When I came in on the Monday, again, I went to pick up my contract, and I was delighted, by the way. And Matt said, "Is there anything else?" That I said, "Well, I want the No.7 shirt, if that's okay." He said, "Yeah, it's okay, it's yours. George will go in number 11. And I had a clubhouse initially, and all the players lived in Charlton. Bobby, Matt himself, Bobby, Dennis, George, Paddy. And I said, "Oh, I'd like a detached house as a clubhouse." And they actually bought me a house in Sale, which apparently was very posh, not that I knew that at the time. So that's the only thing I asked for.
So they moved George to accommodate you on the right.
Now we became great friends. On the Monday, you're not going to go on for it, but I reported for training on the Monday, and went to the cliff where they trained then. And Bestie, after we finished training, Bestie said, "Can I take you for lunch up into Manchester?" So we both went up there, obviously. And he just said, "Look, I want to be friends." And we shook hands, had a little cuddle, and we stayed friends. So.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you. A presentation on behalf of the Association of Former Manchester United Players. If you could all look forward, gentlemen, at the cameras. Thank you. Guys, can you capture that? Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the legend, the Manchester United legend, Willie Morgan. Thank you. Okay, if we could ask Mr. Bowles to come up, please, from the Busby family, if you don't mind. He's down there, coming up here for a special presentation. We've tried to keep this quiet, you see, tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, nice round of applause. Thank you very much indeed. It's a presentation from the former players. Again, connection with your family. And of course, the message is, as always, rest in peace, the Busby babes. And we know we've thrown this on you, but it is a surprise. If you could just say a few words for everybody here tonight. Thank you.
It's a big surprise, an absolute privilege, and I'm privileged to be associated with this very special family. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, a bit of history on the stage tonight. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you very much indeed.